It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
Bueller.
Laugh. And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is The Focus Group with Tim Bennett.
Staunch.
And John Nash.
Keep your clothes looking neat and clean.
We're all business. Except when we're not.
Hey, welcome to The Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, back in New York. So I'm not as fuzzy. Everybody can stop complaining. Hobbled my way up here with my good friend and co-host John Nash here in New York City. So, hey, welcome to The Focus Group. We're here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. East.
Cheesecloth filter optional.
Filter optional, just like RuPaul's Drag Race.
Who said that on Facebook, by the way? We loved it. We loved it. Yeah. No, darling, it went like this. Why is Tim so fuzzy? It's the cheesecloth filter, exactly. Darling.
So thanks for joining us. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, or of course we're on our very own YouTube channel, which is also branded Focus Group Radio, and all of our shows are loaded there. If you ever want to catch up on any of our programming or watch it on TV over the weekend, you can do a whole marathon. You can do a binge watch of the Focus Group. And John and I have our latest podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned, which is a deeper dive into pop culture and some politics and whatever hits our mind. This week we talked about funding and the lack of funding of some LGBT organizations and how they're struggling currently. So if you get a chance, you'll find that right where you find all the audio feeds at SoundCloud or the other
Apple
iTunes,
Podcasts.
Yeah. On today's show, we've got a friend joining us, Mondo Guerra, who is the runner-up of Season 8 in Project Runway, and he's a spokesperson for Dining Out for Life. So a little later on in the hour, he's going to come talk to us about Dining Out for Life and as well as some of the other activities he's doing.
He's the ambassador for Dining Out for Life. He's an ambassador.
Is that what he is, an ambassador?
I think that's what he would call himself, yeah. And I actually think that Tim should maybe take more vacations, not for medical issues, obviously.
More vacations?
Well, so now you're back, and guess who's leaving?
You're leaving?
Paul Ryan.
Oh,
so maybe you leave again for a week or two, and who knows? Maybe maybe Mueller drops the black box and says, "Here's what we found."
I'm wondering if Paul Ryan will now finally grow a set and, maybe talk truth to power.
By the way, can I just tell you something? That is an expression that I am personally very tired of.
What, truth to power?
Everybody talks about, oh, I hope they talk truth to power. Truth to power. And, the sad fact of the matter is, I don't even know what truth to power even sounds like anymore in our current political situation. So it's just, all the norms are changed. Tim and I, before the show, talked about seeing one of our favorites, Madeleine Albright.
Yes.
And what? I just remember something that you and I had meant. This is one of those things we meant to do and we didn't do it. So remember when Madeleine Albright, there was a traveling exhibition, maybe it wasn't, it was right up here at the Design Center at Columbus Circle, of her pins.
Yes.
And there was a description for every pin.
Every pin meant something.
And why she would wear it for a leader of state or whatever it may be. And we're like, we're going to go see that exhibit.
We could tell how her mood was.
Yeah,
based on the pins. In the booth, we've got John and Garrett. Let us know if we hit Syria while we're on air, because apparently it's happening.
It's going to happen. Smart and fast missiles.
Anything happening on the CNN or the news channels? I don't know. Do you listen to Fox up here? What do you watch here in the compound?
It's the Syria stuff is going on.
Yeah,
so did we hit anything yet? That was the threat this morning. Let us know. Oh, wait.
No, they're on alert. Everybody's on alert.
It's all warning.
It's on alert. And he had the balls to bitch at Obama when he said we want to get out of Afghanistan in 2 years. Don't tell him your plan.
Don't dare tell him what you're doing. And then he says, like,
after bombs are coming within 48
hours.
After
harumphing with the crossed arm body language about poor Michael Cohen's office and hotel room being raided by the FBI, that dominated no worries about gas attacks but a threat of our democracy is Michael Cohen, personal confidant, and major domo getting raided. Anyway.
Jeez.
So you're feeling better, I hope.
Well, I'm a little better. I have to go to a surgeon on Friday to see whether I need surgery or not. In the spirit of full transparency, people knew I had some back issues. That's why I was in Philly doing
this. This is a
20 years going on, and I usually get an epidural shot. And but this one has some nerve issues around it, so I've got to see what's happening. But I got this cane. He told me to bring a cane if I go to New York. So the doctor wanted me to get out and about. So I've got this cane I went to Walmart to buy. And which was
it's a stylish
Phoenix
cane, black cane.
They had a blue one, which was kind of sparkly, but I thought it might have been too fashion forward.
You could get the blue sparkly cane if you're in a hover round.
But it reminded me of my old Schwinn bike. Remember
Yeah,
the Schwinn bike, that metallic?
That metallic paint, and then, yeah.
But my friends Rich and Brian, they had me over for dinner, and they told me I was using it wrong. Now, so my right leg is bad, so I was holding it on my right hand because I can't really feel putting my leg down, so I wanted it for balance. And Rich is telling me I need it in the other hand to put it on your strong side. And so I did read the instructions, and the instructions did say that, but it's counterintuitive to me because why would I want the cane on the strong side of my leg? I want it so I don't fall over on the right.
And you're using it just to make sure
I don't fall.
Because it's the nerve thing. You're just not feeling the.
But boy, people look at you different.
Oh yeah.
I was in that train station. People were getting away from me like I had.
Oh my God! So, I've had 2 or 3 surgeries in my lifetime. Two knees. One was a lower back, like a lower back thing. And I remember the time I had my first meniscus surgery for my right knee. And for at least 5 days, I was moving at what would be for me eighth speed, quarter speed.
You're a fast walker.
And this is how the world looked to me as I would walk to this. People are. I think to myself, is New York really this frenetic and crazy? And it is. And I would purposely go to the side of a staircase to go down one step at a time to the subway. People are going down like, oh, they're almost like, get out of my way. What are you doing?
Oh man.
And as my speed picked up during the week, for at least a week, I had a lot of empathy for those who are moving slower, but then that went away, and I was like, get out of my way.
Well, you really do. You really do. I mean, not that I'm handicapped, although I want a handicap tag. I've wanted one forever, handicap parking tag.
You want to hover around?
And
I
almost took it at the grocery store. I was at the Giant, and they had the 3 little carts there with the big basket.
I love those, yeah.
And I was thinking of...
I will never forget the time our friend Tony was visiting us upstate, and we went to a grocery store, and there was a woman who was using one of those carts, and...
Did she need to? Sometimes I think it's lazy.
I think it probably helped her. She was rather large, and she pays, and she leaves the and it makes that humming noise, and she goes right to a vending machine that sold scratch-off lottery tickets, and she punches a code in, and she puts some money in, and a ticket zips out. It flies out of the tray, and then it slips out, it like falls on the floor, and it goes under the machine. And so we were transfixed watching her take the end of her purple sparkly cane with the rubber pad, getting under there, trying to get that ticket out.
Was she still in the cart?
In the cart. And the cart's leaning. It's like listing to starboard. Oh boy, the ship's going to tip over.
No one helped her.
No, everyone, check out, girls. We're all watching, fascinated. Well, what will happen with the scratch-off ticket? Finally, she gets right out of that cart, stands straight up, bends down, puts her hand under there, pulls the ticket out, and then walks out the door. We're like, oh, okay, so the cart was real.
Lazy.
She was just using the cart for I think I'll ride around the store today.
There's a great picture of those, people always do those blogs, the photos of Walmart.
You love that one.
There's one with a big, heavy woman in there leaning to get a thing of soda, and the whole cart flipped right over. Right on her. And, you can't help but laugh, but you kind of do.
I remember once I was in a Walmart, and there was a woman behind me holding a pack of paper towels, like a 6-pack of Bounty or something. We had some kind of small thing, like a plug adapter, and there's a woman paying for stuff in front of us, and she had these really tight black, like leotard pants on. They were so tight, in fact, and they were stretched that you could almost see through the weave of the fabric. And then and you could see coming up, you could see the crack of her butt, and she had like kind of a G-string thing on. And the woman behind me, not even looking at Bob and I, she just said absentmindedly, she goes, no, "Oh, there, Tim, look. John put it up." Thank you, John. That's her.
That might be a man. What do you think?
I think
man or woman, guys? What do you think? 50-50?
Nah, it's a tough one. I'm not sure.
So if you're listening on the podcast, our producers found a picture of what Tim was describing, one of those carts tipped over in the Pepsi aisle.
Getting the sodas.
Getting the soda. So this woman behind me online, she's observing the crack of this woman's butt and the G-string thing, and she just said absentmindedly, "Not my choice for a fashion decision." And we did a double take, and then she sees us, and then we all start like smiling because, there you go. That's a Schadenfreude moment.
Well, it really helps you level things when
Levels the
you
playing
head into
field.
a Walmart. Now, but the thing is, I know people their food is great now. I mean, they're really putting
in the
hurting
super
grocery
stores,
yeah, and they've got great meat and stuff like that, and it's very affordable. But it really is a cross section of America in there, boy. It really is. You'll find everything and anything in there.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's not to be honest with you, it's not my first choice. For that matter, I don't really go to Target that much.
Lighting's horrible.
But, yeah.
I don't know. I just whatever. But I had to go get a cane. That was the closest thing.
Too bad there's not a cane store. Those are put out of business by Amazon, and that's something you can't really.
A cane store.
You can't. Yeah,
I guess it would be a medical supply.
Yes,
store.
Exactly. There's a couple here in the city I love walking by because they have the walkers, the canes, and then they have
commode
braces, the potty stacker, the thing that goes on top of the commode to raise the height of it. Yeah, it's hey.
You might want to think about putting a handicapped toilet in your new place. They're easy to sit on. Easier to sit on. You ever get a hotel room with one of those?
Yes, I've been in a handicapped hotel
Not as much
room.
as a bend.
Yeah, it's a very well. Then if you had the squatty potty as well, you'd be all set. You'd be up and you shoot it out.
That squatty potty does work.
I know you said that.
So what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
This is a GPS/driving caught my eye. So the headline is Waze. Waze people still use Waze.
That's Richard's favorite app.
Waze's crazy routing over a 32% grade road is driving residents nuts. Now this takes place in Los Angeles. It's a common story. Small towns and residents living in once quiet streets are sometimes annoyed by the influx of traffic that Waze puts people through to get from A to B.
So Waze is the app that is it like a Google Maps?
Yeah, like
or
Google Maps.
Tell you how to go, and then it lets you know if there's construction or police or anything.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's pretty quickly updated by users themselves.
Do you use it?
I use Google. I use it Google stuff. Google. But residents along Baxter Street in Los Angeles' Echo Park neighborhood, reportedly one of the steepest streets in America, comprising 2 major hills, are now banding together to try to get Waze to stop having people, and Google as well, go through their neighborhood because the road is so steep that it takes people by surprise. Now, I included 2. So the first picture we had, if you're listening, was 2 little boys, like from 1950 or 40s, walking up a street. I think that when you look at a picture of a hill, sometimes you don't get the whole sense of it. So the next slide that John put up shows a picture of a house. And the guy, what he did in Photoshop was he made the street look like it was level, and thus the house looks like it's literally tipping over.
Oh, my gosh.
And then there's another picture next to it of a school bus that tried to go down the hill, but it got caught in the middle because it's such a steep drop-off. So they believe that drivers are using this Baxter Avenue or Baxter Street to avoid Glendale Boulevard and some of the traffic on it. And neighbors around the street are furious because routinely, every week, there's an accident. Cars come through our garden, they went through the fences. When it rains, people drive, and as they get to that hill, they start going up, and then they get scared. They hit the gas, spins out, the car spins, and it lands in someone's front yard. The street dates back to 1872, has a 32% grade. Now it's more than double what current city laws allow. So if the street were ever repaved or regraded, they'd have to figure out a way around it. The street was described by the New York Times as this. Unsuspecting motorists gasp when they reach the crest and discover the roadway in front of them has dropped out of sight and there is nothing but empty space in front of their car's hood. Now,
that is scary there.
We
had the electric car there.
That was San Fran.
Yeah.
You found the other.
Where is this on San Fran?
This is Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
Which is surprising, right?
Yeah.
So Baxter Street has also been a proving ground for automobile manufacturers where they used to stage elaborate stunts for their vehicles to show the power of the cars. They would load up trucks to try to get it up the hill, and what neighbors have observed is some cars, depending on how heavy the car is with passengers or stuff, they'll get to the top and the front tires actually start lifting off the road.
Oh my gosh.
So the neighborhood appealed to Waze and Google. I believe Google purchased Waze. They're a subsidiary or something? I think so. And they're now trying their best to make the algorithm ignore Baxter Street. I read this and I say to myself, how hard can it be to go in and click, 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 just take Baxter Street off the I don't know.
Well, interestingly, and I don't know if it was Waze, but it was a similar app. I was trying to get my way around an area I didn't know, and it took me right down a one-way street the wrong way.
Wrong way, yep.
And and how do you tell that? I was afraid I was going to get pulled over. I got in and halfway down the road and I realized I was going on a one-way street the wrong way. Would you just say, well, the app told me to go this way?
That's your
defense. You get pulled over by the police and say, I didn't know where I was in the app?
That is totally your defense. When we were in France a couple of years ago, I was using, the car had a system that I think was using Waze, and Bob says, turn left, and literally, you're at the left-hand turn. It was like a cow path. And I'm like, do we do it? And everybody laughed. We got on the cow path, and we go for like a quarter mile, and then we intersected with another paved road. It was so France. I hate France. So that's Baxter Street, 32% grade. I would like to ride my bike up it. 32 is one killer hill. I was going to say that would be almost.
If we head out there, we'll have to do that. Then we'll rent you a bike, one speed,
fixed gear, a fixed gear.
So mine, I thought this might have caught your eye, but I don't know. This happened 17 years ago, but it was just resolved last week. So the headline is, Hotel Finally Forgives Man Who Destroyed Room with Pepperoni and Seagulls. So this happened at the posh British Columbia Fairmont Empress Hotel in Victoria, British Columbia. So this guy was traveling from Nova Scotia to British Columbia, which would be, for those of you geographically challenged, like going from Maine to California.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I'm geographically challenged sometimes, so thank you.
So the hotel lifted this ban when the customer, so this guy's name is Nick Burchill, he inadvertently caused extensive damage to his room he was staying in because he left a suitcase full of pepperoni in the window. So he was going out to British Columbia on business, and he had a bunch of friends that were in the Canadian Navy, and he said, hey, I'm coming out. Let's all get together. Is there anything you want me to bring from home? So he lived in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So they said, bring us some of this Brothers TNT pepperoni for the military base. So he went and got a whole suitcase full of pepperoni and carted it across Canada, across country, and gets to the hotel to check in. He's going to see his Army buddies or his Navy buddies the next day. So he checks into the hotel and realizes they don't have refrigeration. He didn't have a refrigerator in his room, but he said it was cool enough. So he opened the window, to his hotel room, and like he said, he only left it open a little bit, and put the pepperoni there in the suitcase, and then went out, wandered around to explore for 4 or 5 hours. He came back, his room was full of seagulls. They had gotten in the pepperoni, they crapped all over the place, ruined the curtains, ruined the bed, ruined the carpeting. They said They said when he came back, there were at least 40 seagulls in the room eating the pepperoni. He said they were drooling. He said, I've never seen seagull drool before, but that's what happens when they eat pepperoni.
Drooling?
Drooling. He said they were drooling. They loved it so much, I guess they were so excited. He said lamps were knocked over, curtains were ripped, not to mention all the seagull droppings. He didn't know what to do, so he was trying to chase the birds out. He couldn't get them all out. So he started throwing things at him, whatever, broke the window. Ends up throwing his shoe at one. His shoe went out the window. He lost his dress shoe. He had to go out and retrieve that. It was all full of mud. He had to go to a business meeting. He said he had to get a towel to catch the other ones and throw the birds out the window. And so then he calls down to the front desk.
Now he calls down to the front desk.
You know, we have a little bit of a problem. Here's what happened. So he says they sent, and I have to read, he goes, they sent this poor lady up. I still remember the look on her face when she opened the door. So they send one of the maids to the room. She had her cleaning kit with her, but it really wasn't quite the kit she needed. It said what she needed was something that was going to certainly do more cleaning and cover the damage and mess that was left in the room by the seagulls. So he thought, he apologized. They cleaned up the room. He said they had him leave. They gave him another room, and he thought that was it. But then the hotel sent a pretty lengthy note to him and to his workplace. It said, you can never stay in our hotel again. You're banned from the hotel. So he felt kind of upset about it. And he's been traveling back and forth, he says, to Vancouver, you know, for the last 17 years or so. And then here's where he's so typical Canadian. He decided he wanted to stay at the Empress Hotel again in Victoria. So he stopped in with an apology, formal written apology, explained what happened. They all laughed and they said, certainly we would love you to stay here. And if you ever stay anywhere else, we'll be upset with you. So we want you to come back. You're now welcome back to the hotel. And he ended up bringing them a pound of the pepperoni.
The pepperoni that caused the problems, right?
But woo!
So, you know, I saw a headline that probably related to this. And the headline was something like, Flock of Seagulls allowed back, and I thought it was a band member.
Well, it's New York Post did that.
Oh, okay. So I thought it was a kind of like topless
man found in, or topless body found in a headless bar.
Headless body found in topless bar. That's what it was. Yeah. So I thought it was kind of like that, where the band had destroyed the room. The actual Flock of Seagulls had gone in, the band, and shredded the room, and they were denied access to the room.
It's funny you say that, because that was going to be another one of my caught my eyes. It's the 35th anniversary of that headline, the headless body found in topless bar.
Yeah.
The guy who died. And
Wait, it's 35th anniversary.
35th anniversary headline. I'll have to pull it up. Maybe I'll post it on Facebook. But
did you do that a year or two ago? You talked about how the reporter called that headline in from the street or something, and it's just now this
it's
infamous...
viral, and yeah.
I love that stuff. Okay.
So business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So this one's pretty easy. Born today, April 11th in 1908. He died in 1997 at 89. Japanese electronics industrialist and co-founder of Sony, Masaru Ibuka.
Masaru Ibuka.
Ibuka. So he was... Yep. He's a graduate of Waseda University. And after university, he went and he served in the Imperial Japanese Navy. And, of course, we know how that turned out. In 1946, he left the company and the Navy.
Of course, we know how that turned out. Yeah. Yeah. But
he had nothing to do, so he founded a bombed-out radio repair shop in Tokyo. So Ibuki and his friend Marita, they co-founded the Sony Corporation. They originally named it the Tokyo Telecommunications Engineering Corporation. But he was instrumental in securing the first licensing of transistor technology to Sony from Bell Labs in the 50s. And they said it made Sony with the very first company to apply transistor technology for non-military use. He was president of Sony from 50 to 71 and the chairman from 71 to 76. He was very much revered in Japan with all kinds of any kind of honor you could get from their government for what he did in the development of Sony. I mean, we all know Sony's such a huge conglomerate.
Hello, the Walkman changed all our lives. And in fact, I think there's a picture of the original, my favorite, in fact, that might be my favorite one. It was literally the size of the cassette tape. It was so delicate, and those things broke so quick, man.
And he also very involved in scouting, which were the Boy Scouts of
Japan.
Of Nippon. Yeah, he was very much. He was chairman in the National Board of Governors, but very involved in scouting. The one thing he did do, which I thought was interesting, he wrote a book. He authored a book called "Kindergarten is Too Late." It was
that is so funny.
And it was
Kindergarten is too late.
Right. Well, and this quote that's there, I thought was good for you too. The one that's there that says about the.
We Japanese enjoy the small pleasures, not extravagance. I believe a man should have a simple lifestyle, even if he can afford more. That is very much up my alley. That is totally up my alley.
So in this book, Kindergarten is Too Late, he claims that the most significant human learning occurs from birth to 3 years old.
I would really agree with that. You've seen kids those
ages,
right?
He said the first years of life are most vital for education. By the time you get to kindergarten, it's too late.
It's over, Tim. It's over for us. Although I would think that we had a pretty good 0 to 3 run. I'm pretty sure.
He died again December 1997 from heart failure at 89. But happy birthday!
89 is a good run, and thank
Masaru
you.
Ibuka.
That was a good business birthday. Sony was hey, come on. Sony figured very prominently in all our lives. Yeah.
Hey, for all of you that are fans of our show, you know that Deep Discount is one of our partners here in the Focus Group, and we're delighted to be able to share with you each week some of the finds that John and I venture to choose. This week, it's the under $10 and budget sale. So if you go to focusgroupradio.com and click on the Deep Discount logo, you'll see the $10 and under sale going on. And I picked. Do you want me to do my pick
first? Yes, if you'd like, go ahead. John might have to scramble around with.
Sure. Well, yeah. So the one I picked was Madonna's "Truth or Dare."
Oh my God! I remember when the movie came out in 1991, black and white, right?
Right. It came out in 1991. It reveals her as she really is. It says on stage and off stage, and profiled her as a businesswoman, singer, dancer, biggest star in the world at the time. For me, it came out in 1991 originally. Had Warren Beatty in there, who she was dating.
Yeah,
Sandra Bernhard, who was her best friend. They were estranged. Kevin Costner, that uncomfortable exchange. Mm-hmm. But for me, when I saw it the first time, I remember I lived in Portland, Oregon at the time. And when I first saw it, there were two things that I was shocked by. One of them was her confidence.
Yeah.
I thought she had an extreme amount of confidence and resolve. But on the other hand, particularly when she was with Sandra Bernhard, she seemed to be very lonely, unhappy, and almost childish. There was this kind of...
Well, you just perfectly described the businesswoman and the artist.
Yeah.
So the businesswoman was supremely confident. The artist is always wondering, how am I doing? Do you like me? Do you love me?
Do you like me? And you always felt she was searching for something, but you never knew what she was searching for. So there are lots of uncomfortable moments in it, but a lot of fun moments in it, too. You can get it at deep discount at the under $10 sale. It's $7.29 is what they have it advertised for. For a little more money, for under $11, you can get the Blu-ray.
Oh, okay.
But for under $10, it's...
This under 10 and budget sale that Deep Discount's got going on, I think I want to call it, it's like the tax day movie sale. So if you got a refund, you could spend a tiny bit of it over at our friends Deep Discount. Yeah. If you have to pay, like I do, you're going to feel a little bit better about under 10 because everything else is going. I picked two movies from two different time periods. First one is His Girl Friday, starring Cary Grant and Rosalind Russell. She plays a newspaper reporter that's on the verge of getting married to, she used to be married to Cary Grant, but she's remarrying Ralph Bellamy. And Cary Grant tries to push the relationship off the rails because he thinks it's not the right guy for her. She plays Hildy Johnson. And it's a classic Rosalind Russell, Cary Grant. And Cary Grant, I love Cary Grant. Anything he's in, I love. So His Girl Friday, it's $6.85 at Deep Discount on the 10 and under sale. Again, it's just something to pick up. You'll really enjoy. Good acting, good character acting. And the other one I picked is one that I can watch.
Yeah, this is one of your movies.
On any number of times for a very particular scene when Mary Tyler Moore is pulling a luggage out of a closet, and she has that one moment where she almost cries. It's Ordinary People. Timothy Hutton, Mary Tyler Moore, Donald Sutherland, and the psychiatrist who treats the young boy. Well, Timothy Hutton is played by Judd Hirsch. It was one of those roles that Mary Tyler Moore did that was the breakout role because she'd been known as a comedian, right? And she was always on that side of the spectrum, and then she became really serious. And she was really brittle in this movie. Did you like Ordinary People?
I don't, I don't.
Does it bother you?
I don't recall it as much as I should. I probably should watch it again because I know you love it.
It's not a bad movie. And this week, a movie that me and Tim would like to see, actually, we discussed this before the show. This one crept up in a funny way. It's called The Greatest Showman, starring Hugh Jackman and Michelle Williams, and it's and Zac Efron's in it. It's a musical.
And people love the soundtrack. I mean, the soundtrack seemed to
slow burn at the box office, right? It actually made more money than people ever suspected. And
it's one of those sleepers, I think, isn't it? I'd like to see it.
So. Yeah, The Greatest Showman is the release of the week at Deep Discount. And as Tim said at the top of the Deep Discount segment, if you want to shop there, go to focusgroupradio.com, click on the shark logo. Got to get that in. And sharp away. To recap, we went over a couple movies that we think you might like. The first one is Truth or Dare.
Truth or Dare from Madonna.
Great pick, Tim, by the way. I picked His Girl Friday. I want to say His Gal Friday. His Girl Friday with Cary Grant, Rosalind Russell. Ordinary People, Timothy Hutton, Mary Tyler Moore, and Donald Sutherland. And the pick of the week, the new release, is The Greatest Showman, starring Hugh Jackman. What do we say, Garrett?
Thanks, Deep Discount.
Thank you. Everybody's on the ball. The booth's operating at 100%. We're moving.
Boys on the booth.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, we are welcoming Mondo Guerra, did I pronounce that correctly? Guerra, who is Season 8 runner-up from Project Runway, but he's the ambassador for Dining Out for Life. We're going to catch up with him on all his projects and what he's doing now. And he's going to also talk to us about Dining Out for Life, so stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick break.
When I was diagnosed with HIV, I felt very afraid, very alone. The only thing that kept me alive, breathing, was my best friend, which is the artistic side of me.
Mondo, talk to me about growing up, a little bit of your background.
Well, I grew up in Denver in a Mexican Catholic family. My grandparents called me Chicano, and then at school I was hearing that I was Hispanic, but I also knew that I was Latino, that I was hearing that I was Mexican, so I didn't really know how to identify. And also being a gay boy growing up in a Mexican Catholic family was very difficult because I wanted to express myself in different ways, but I also felt very ashamed to express myself completely and fully.
How do you keep your culture alive in your everyday life?
Well, knowing how to cook, A. I will say that I make some pretty good red chili. And just, you know, honoring family tradition. We all get together over Christmas. We all get together over Easter. Every aunt is going to make the same dish for the potluck every year. Like, you know what's going to go on, right? That's tradition, and that's really, really special.
So part of your public persona is being open about your HIV status. What was it about you that you decided, like, okay, I want to use my platform to educate?
When I came out as HIV positive on national television, it was very, very difficult. So standing on that stage and presenting something and not being able to tell the truth behind the work would not only be dishonor to myself, but it'd be dishonor to the only thing that has ever kept me alive, breathing all my life, which is the artistic side of me. I think fashion is an identity to have no rules whatsoever. It's about knowing who you are, honoring that, and not being afraid to be who you are 100%.
Well, part of your journey is I Design. So talk to me about that.
I Design is a national HIV education campaign that is just really encouraging people living with HIV to just have open conversations and educate themselves.
Mondo, thank you so much for sharing your story. I want to thank you for inspiring people. And on behalf of Boost Mobile, we would like to give you $5,000
Oh, wow.
towards your charity.
Oh, are you serious?
Yes.
That's amazing. Thank you. Oh my gosh, really?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was my
Awesome.
pleasure. This was incredible.
Oh, that's so cool.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Try, really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, John Nash. We are the Focus Group. Thanks for joining us here live. We're here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. East. And, of course, you can catch our latest podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned, which is released on Tuesday mornings. And then, of course, an audio version of this show, for those of you who still like to consume the audio part, is released on Saturdays. So you can find out everything you need to know about the show at focusgroupradio.com.
Plethora of media.
As promised, John and I are huge fans, as you know, over the years of Project Runway. And we're delighted to be able to welcome Mondo Guerra. Did I say that right?
No.
Guerra.
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 Yeah, it's like Sarah, but with a G, Guerra.
From season 8 of Project Runway. More importantly, though, you won the All-Stars.
The first All-Stars.
The first All-Stars. But here's what so before we get into all that, me messing up your last name, why don't you just go by Mondo, like Cher or Madonna? I mean, I'm sure
that's what my family calls me, Mondo.
Mondo.
Yeah,
right. So can we just call you Mondo?
Call me Mondo.
There we go.
It's right up there with Sting.
With Sting, Madonna, Lady Gaga.
50 Cent.
50 Cent.
50 Cent, yes.
No, 50 Cent.
So thanks for taking time. I know you're busy. And we were talking about dining out for life and some of the other things you have going on. So rather than us going through all the information we have, why don't you catch our listeners up on what you've been doing?
Oh, geez. Well, right now, I don't know. There's been a lot of shifts in my life since the new year. And right now I'm kind of back in the freelance world, which is very interesting. I am doing a lot of commissions for queens from the Drag Race.
So the latest RuPaul's Drag Race?
The latest RuPaul's Drag Race. So I did.
Is it season 10 we're on?
It's season 10, yes. Yeah. And so last year I did one of Peppermint's finale gowns, and then I guess word got out and all these queens started reaching out to me before the season started. And it's been really fun because I started in costuming, so I feel like I'm going back to my roots. Every queen is like a different character, so it's fun to really create for these individual personalities, and trust, they are definitely personalities.
How did there have been so many people that have gone through that Project Runway franchise. Is there a fraternity of you men and women, or
I call it more of a sorority.
Sorority,
because we can talk some smack about each other, and yeah, you know, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah,
your season in particular was very powerful, and I remembered the challenge that you actually came out as HIV positive. I think it was the HP pattern challenge or something, and you had built into your garment all the plus signs.
Yes, the positivity print.
And then when the Runway show happened, and you had to explain to the judges why this occurred. It was an incredibly emotional moment, and I thought all your work on that season was fantastic. It was very fun. So I guess the broader thing I want to ask you is, as a designer, as a fashion designer, you are basically a storyteller.
Yeah.
And when you talked about the RuPaul costume, the costumes you're doing, stuff like you have to get to know that character and tell their story through what they're wearing, right? So with your freelance now, are you able to do more of that than you were before, or?
Yeah, you know, when I was doing costuming, I always like to approach every character and kind of think about what their secrets are, and like even if I don't really
know. Do you make
know
those up, or like
I make them up, like, okay, their favorite color is da da da, or maybe this is like what they ate, or like whatever it is. I just like to get to know them in my own head. I think it makes the process a little bit more fun, and it makes me get to know them better, and I definitely have more of a focus, and so that really allows me to expand on the initial idea.
Which is, yeah, go ahead, Tim.
No, so do you still like doing costuming more than, I guess I would say, traditional clothing?
Well, I think, you know, with doing collections, you stare at a concept and you have a color story and you stick with that for 3 months of your life, and it can get a little, it's a lot, you know, and you do it day after day after day. But now I can go back from one project to the next project and change it up every other day, and I'm not looking at the same colors, I'm not working with the same material, so it's been really, really fun.
But on that collection level, that's a 3 or 4 month window. You're being critiqued on it as well, whether it's a buyer or whether it's a creative director, or I'm not sure the structure of creative management. And
I think for me, the thing that I deal with the most is that because I came from a platform like Project Runway, there's the public, and there's Instagram and there's social media, so they know me for, and I guess I kind of like, you know, I do it too. Like, I'm wearing polka dots. I'm known for polka dots, and I'm known for like
typecast.
Yes,
he's going to do
yes.
black leather. He's going to do polka dot. Right.
Black leather. What?
Polka dots.
Okay. But no, yeah. So like you said, yeah, I'm kind of typecast, and I feel like the audience really expects me to do one thing, and so it's really challenging for me when I put something out
that goes
against what is expected, and that can be very, very scary. But I've also learned to accept it and know that the work is good. The work is still okay.
How much of we had the pleasure of interviewing Tim Gunn many years ago when we were on Sirius Satellite Radio, and one of our favorite guests. I felt this. I'm wondering. Is he really the true mentor we see? I think there's a reflection of him is accurate on TV. And how much do we not see of you guys processing the critique? And because it's very it comes in, it's almost like a bump, 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 walk away, and then you got to live with the emotion of that, you know.
Right. Well, Tim walks in, and he, you know, it's definitely set up, the camera's set up and everything, and you know that he's coming. You're a little intimidated. I mean, for me, I was very intimidated the first time because I didn't go to school, I didn't go to college, I didn't have these mentors that were critiquing my work, and so the first time that I spoke to him, the first time that I was in a critique with him, is very intimidating. And I don't think I really heard anything that he told me, just because I was like stuck. I don't know what was going on. I really didn't know. I was afraid. Yeah. I was really scared. But, through the process, he really did become a mentor. And talking about the challenge where I revealed my HIV positive status, I think there was a couple episodes later where we had time with Tim alone, and he, really opened up about his experiences and growing up here in New York City in the early 80s, and just really, comforted me. And it was he's a very nice, humble, amazing guy.
Yeah, he gave me a swipe on his Metro card one day. He recognized me, and we lived in the same neighborhood. And I was fumbling with the card, and and it kept beeping. And he walks up, and he walks up behind me and goes, "Card's empty." And I'm like, "Oh, Tim." And he goes, "I remember you." And he goes, "Let me give you a swipe." And we rode, and it was right before he was leaving Liz Claiborne. Mm-hmm. And he was group creative director, and he talked about how you had to shepherd all these talents. It was fascinating.
So because of Tim, you didn't have to jump over the. Good. That's nice. Okay. He's a nice guy. See.
So you weren't, quote unquote, classically trained as some of the people that went on that show then?
No, I wasn't.
So wow. So you were able to? Would you just send in a portfolio of work, or?
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy process. I'm actually leaving this week to start the new casting process.
Oh, so you're going to help recast?
Yes, I'm on the panel. So that's always exciting. I've been doing that for the past
couple shows
6 years or something like that, and it's just been really, really fun to see the talent. And the thing about it is that we see so much talent, we see so much creativity, and there's only a certain small number of people that they can cast. And I like to see them succeed, and I like to see who gets on the show because I don't really know who's going to get on the show, and I watch it as a fan, Yeah. I watch it just like anybody else. I don't want to know who won. I don't know how far anybody got. I'm like a fan. I'm a big fan.
Wow. So in the so you've been, well, you have time to do other things. You're also an HIV AIDS activist.
Yes.
And you had a couple of groups. Do you still do the is it iDesign?
iDesign was sponsored by Merck, and that ended this past year. So that is an old campaign, and that's very interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up because working with that campaign, there were a lot of things that I wasn't able to tap into or talk about, and I feel living with HIV, it's and getting older, I feel like it's evolving, and with new treatments, everything's evolving. In my relationship, I always approach myself as a HIV. Living with HIV as a relationship. I feel like it's an emotional relationship, and I feel like any other relationship, you have to really nurture it and work with it. And sometimes you really hate it, and sometimes you really embrace it. And you know what? Whatever it is, you really have to take care of yourself. And
I can imagine that in how you describe that, the relationship is probably like a sine wave, where if it's a doctor visit and you're checking to make sure all your levels are okay, then it's someone on the journey who's standing too close. And then later on, when you're busy with work and you're doing stuff, it's someone who's sitting 10 cars behind you on the train, but they're always there, right?
Yes, they're always there, and you always, and you always have to check in. And I always tell myself that it's, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, I need to deal with this. How do I deal with it? I'm like, you have to decide to do it. You have to decide to take the proper steps to find what works best for you, and it's really an individualized process.
Wow. And I think the step that you just said before that, though, is probably the most difficult, I would imagine, and the one that's really critical is making the decision to own it.
Right. And, I didn't talk about my HIV status for 10 years only because I was very, very scared. And I didn't start talking about it until I started really realizing what I was doing when I was in the hospital with PCP pneumonia and a T-cell count of 14 and basically dying from AIDS. And, the only thing that I kept on going back to was that I am really destroying everything that I've really loved, which is my family and myself and the creative process, and that was really hard.
So were you afraid of people's prejudice, or were you?
Which I still think is very
or were you afraid
today,
for career, or was it just all a combination?
I didn't. That my career hadn't even started at that point. That was right before I got on the show. I was afraid of telling my parents and my family because growing up in the 80s and also in the 90s, I never even heard my family talk about HIV.
And I think a lot of families don't, right?
Yeah. I think it still happens today, and and that was and so I was very scared. I didn't know how they were going to react, but I am happy to say that after I came out, they really took it upon themselves to educate themselves and become advocates in their own right.
I was surprised you had some of the pre-materials that were sent from us before your visit, and I was some of it I was shocked by, some of it not though. But to me, it sounds like a high number. But in 2016, there were 40,000 new cases of HIV in this country, which I think is high.
Compared that to 1994.
Yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, and I don't know what
the numbers.
And I don't know what the
Yeah.
comparison is. But I wondered, because when you look at it now, it seems, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to have kind of migrated from gay men to women of color, or more people of color. And I'm wondering if the gay community, I'll put in quotes, has kind of taken their eye off the ball with HIV. And, we were doing Don't Ask, Don't Tell and marriage and all these other things, and there still is this HIV
health crisis.
Right, yes. Health crisis happening. And
well, it's definitely a crisis because there's not a cure and there's new infections every day. I feel like within the gay community, it has, there's a lot of things that I'd like to say, but
you can say them.
I think one of the things is that there's some new treatments out there that are allowing people to
be reckless
and irresponsible. And I also feel like there is a generational gap, that there's there's like a break in conversation, and I feel like
that's actually a great way of saying it.
Very diplomatic.
No, it's a break in the conversation means like literally it's this 20-minute lull or something, and in that time, some people move on and forget what they were talking about, and suddenly you have two different groups, and they're like we come from the. From a generation where I saw many, many friends pass away from it long before we had treatments. And I used to own an agency, an ad agency that did LGBT marketing, and we were hired to do Virusept, which was the 4th protease inhibitor to hit the market. But that was back when you were talking about medications that were so hard to comply with. Digestive issues, it was X amount of pills a day, whatever. And then eventually we get to the 1 or 2 pills a day regimen. But it seems to me that it was a very gay white male laser focus that got a lot of this on the move, like God's Love We Deliver, Act Up, the whole bit. And the minute that group or that group of individuals began to move out of the zone of danger, it was like, oh, okay.
Right. When we talk about this break in conversation and generations, I feel from what I've seen, and I'm kind of stuck in the middle. I'm 40 years old, so I get a lot of emails from younger people asking me how do they disclose this to their family, or what are the first steps. But then I have older gentlemen telling me thank you for continuing to speak about this, because I feel like there should be a cross-mentoring program for HIV.
That's a generational project.
Yes, I definitely feel like that would improve, and I also feel like because of that gap, people aren't embracing each other, and I feel like that is really the problem in the conversation. I feel like people really need to respect each other and take responsibility.
Well, one of my in the spirit of full transparency, as everyone knows, I used to be director of marketing at Subaru of America.
Grand Poobah marketing.
Grand Poobah marketing at Subaru, and literally the week before I left, I green-lighted Dining Out for Life. It was the last program that I approved, the last partnership, and I'm happy to say Subaru is still doing it. I believe now going into its 11th or 12th year, and so I'm very proud of that, and glad that legacy has lived on. And so Dining Out for Life, are you an ambassador? John was calling you ambassador. Are you an ambassador or a spokesperson? How do we want to call you?
You can call me a queen, a prince, an ambassador, whatever you want.
But Dining Out for Life this year is it's Thursday, April 26th. It happens in 70 cities across North America. If you go to diningoutforlife.com, though, you can check your city and find out some dates. Some are doing it on April 19th. There are some dates that happen in different times of the year. And in a lot of places, it's also not only dinner, but it's also breakfast or lunch. And it's a great way for a group of friends to get together, or even if you just want to go on your own, go out to eat. It's easy. Most restaurants donate a portion, and some of them even donate the full amount of your check to the local HIV AIDS organization in your community. So it's such a great program, and I think
you're celebrating.
You're in
Austin, right?
I'm going to be in Austin, and Austin's date. Well, for us, it's the 24th.
24th.
Yes, but here in New York City, it is the Alliance for Positive Change. They're hosting it for the very, very first time here in New York City. So I'm encouraging
Excellent.
everybody
New York
that's in
City's
the
the first
city.
time, right?
Yes,
Excellent.
Go out there.
And last year they raised over $4 million over the one day. So that's a pretty, when you
That's a
think
chunk of
about it, that's a
change,
nice chunk of change. And again, it stays right in the local communities, and it's easy to do because you're going to go out to eat anyway. You know, we like to go out to eat. So go out to eat at a restaurant that's supporting Dining Out for Life in one of the cities in the U.S. and Canada. And I think there's other cities around the world too. That are doing it.
and
international, yeah.
I get this question a lot from people that know that I'm an advocate or that I am, vocal about my status. They say, how can I get involved? This is the perfect way to get involved. It's so easy. And like you said, you can go eat breakfast, you can go have lunch, and you can go have dinner. And like,
takeout, you can do takeout and you'll get credit for it.
Wonderful, and like you said, the wonderful thing is that it stays in the community. That's amazing. That's so amazing.
Yeah, it's a great organization.
I have a non sequitur question for you as Tim was going through this. I'm wondering, as a creative individual, if your main outlet is fashion, do you have another passion that you? Is it photography? Is it sketching? I'm just curious.
Well,
journaling? What?
Dancing.
Well, I wish I was a dancer, but my parents, my parents were like, nope, boys don't dance when I was 16. I've had this conversation.
Boys don't dance, but I'll make dresses.
Exactly. That's a whole nother conversation. We'll stop right there. Other creative outlets. Well, I love fashion, but I never thought that I would have this crossover of fashion into advocacy and working with AIDS service organizations. And I feel, for me, if I feel like the next step for me, because I really am very inspired by this HIV community and how they use their voice and how much they embrace each other. And I really want to start a program, A, talking to youth, and B, injecting some art therapy programs into AIDS service organizations.
Wow,
so I think
that's a great idea.
Something that I want to work on.
Well, we're here to help you. So if you start any of those things, you're always welcome here at the Focus Group.
Yeah.
Now, one last question, because I got an artist in front of me. Are you digital or traditional when you sketch?
Oh, geez, here we go.
Well, he's such a little tech nerd.
Yeah,
so
I just finished a 2-year program.
I think he's got a pad and pencil.
So you're a digital guy. Yeah. I am a cut and paste guy. Yes, I was doing some graphics, if you want to call them that, for some prints that I was producing, and I actually handed it to person that actually knows how to use the computer, and he's like, what is this? I'm like, it's a snapshot.
What is this?
Yeah, it's a pic of like what I drew out, and I'll even, if I screw up, I'll like cut out a piece of paper, draw it the right way, and paste it. It is truly
paper
the
dolls.
Art. Yes, it's the art of cut and paste. So yeah, I guess you would say traditional.
Yeah, your hands-on.
Handsy, yes.
Your hands-on medium. I found that when I was studying animation, if I had this, we often had to draw key poses for characters to hit, and they had to often be exaggerated or line of action. And I would draw it, but I had to scan it in and then upload the JPEG because no one was taking the paper. So eventually a fellow student said, why don't you just draw it on your iPad and sending it, I was like, so it's different. It's not as tactile. That's what we're looking for. There's a tactile quality to cut and paste that's different, right?
I mean, I definitely make it harder for myself. I wish I knew how to do that, but, there's some kind of...
What works for you?
Yeah, it's my process.
Yeah.
All right.
That's my excuse.
Great.
Mondo.
Yes.
Pronounce your last name.
Guerra.
I'm just calling him Mondo.
Oh,
Yes.
that's right. We got to the one name. Sure.
Decent.
Before he says goodbye to you, though, we want to give you, and they're purple, a pair of our famous Focus Group Radio socks. We're designers too,
They'll go very well with this outfit.
I'll make some puppets out of these.
We want to see those on the Queens,
puppets,
on
yeah.
RuPaul.
Yes. Oh, good
You
idea.
got a bunch more. You can do a whole dress out of them.
Two big
whole
thank yous.
collection,
Thank
yes.
you for joining us today, and thank you for your advocacy for the HIV positive community and for partnering with Dining Out for Life. It's a really, really important thing, and I love where you're going with the generational thought process about crossing that divide. And cross-cultural currents are going to be very useful as we move forward, because I'm in the generation, our age now, which we won't share, but
Older.
but when I was younger, a lot of guys my age were actually passing away. So there was this whole gap in how do you be an old gay man. I'm more mature.
But that's that whole thing he was talking about, the break in the conversation, which was perfectly said.
Well said. Thank you. So thank you, Mondo. It's Mondo, singular, Tim and John. We're going to come back after this quick break with a quick shop talk, so stay with us.
Thank you.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more.
Jetta is absolutely fun to drive. The feel of it when you're going down the road, especially this one, that everybody looks at it and waves at you, and it's just a blast.
Just get a feeling in a Volkswagen you don't get in another car. It's kind of funny to say. It's almost like it's got a mind of its own. It's got feelings. It's got a heart, you know?
My favorite little pieces of the car, my interior, my VR6 motor. Love the VR6 motor. It's a Volkswagen. It's built with quality.
I got the Jetta about 9 years ago. The fun things about the Jetta are, you know, it's a comfortable car. I love driving it with the windows down. Those are my favorite memories.
I knew I wanted Volkswagen, but I chose the Jetta because it was four-door, it had plenty of space for me and my dog. My car is so fun to drive.
It definitely is fun to drive. Cruising down the freeway, somebody passes by, they turn their heads. It's a good feeling.
Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
And in business a week, I got more money and I know what to do with.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
Herrera Rocher. He is doing well.
Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. Thanks again for Mondo, for joining us and talking to us about all the projects he's doing.
Love seeing Mondo.
Nice, smart conversation, and of course, him as a spokesperson for Dining Out for Life. Be sure you support Dining Out for Life in your community. If you don't have a chapter, it's not too hard to it's not too hard to start one. So it's diningoutforlife.com. Now it was my birthday on Monday,
and the booth crew and Allie brought in. You blew out the candle?
Yeah, I blew out the candle. I made a wish that. Allie and I made a wish. I won't say what it is. But they brought me cupcakes, which was very nice. And so I was wondering why. I asked John earlier. We were going to do Shop Talk, and I said, John, Shop Talk didn't get printed out on the notes. And now I know why. John's got cakes and cookies, and the booth brought me stuff. And
what I have here...
What is that? Is that a lemon square?
What I have for Tim, and these are just for Tim, so you could take these home. But these are from, according to New York Magazine, they're from the bakery that makes the best lemon squares in Manhattan.
Oh, my God, John. Is that why you were late?
Yes. No, I got these yesterday. I was running late because we're moving.
Oh, my God.
So you could take it home or save it or have one now. But
well, I will share it, probably with Richard and perhaps Brian if I get invited to dinner or something.
I had a sample.
Was it good?
Me and Bob.
You want me to figure it out?
Me and Bob both kind of finished our sample. I said, we have to sample this before I give it to Tim. It was the last night. And we eat, we're watching. We always record the news and watch it later so I can just fast forward and delete it because I'm so tired of the effing news. Aren't you all tired of the news? I'm tired of the news. It's always
Did
bad.
we hit Syria yet?
You know, the stock market's up 400. Trump tweets something, it's down 600. I'm getting tired of it. So I had a little piece of the lemon thing. We both sit there for a second. I said, "What'd you think?" And Bob just nods his head. He goes, I have to say, it is one of the best balanced lemon squares. And the way the bakery talks about it, it's like just the right amount of zest
and sweet.
Yeah,
that's
it's
pretty.
balance.
You know, I love
those.
So that's going to be fantastic. And I want to have this red velvet cupcake that Allie brought in here from the folks in the booth, and but I'll make a mess of it.
And the reason we got Tim lemon squares is he is not a huge chocolate fan.
Not a huge chocolate fan.
He likes chocolate, but
I'll tell you though, when I was at Walmart, taking it all the way back to getting my cane.
Getting your cane.
And they had, for some reason, I had a taste for chocolate, which I never do. But I got those little fun-sized Snicker bars.
Oh, those are perfect.
And I put them in the freezer because that way...
That is even better.
That way you really can't plow
break
through
your teeth, though.
Yeah. That's all I need.
You
know, Trixie had 27 teeth out, my dog.
But she's happy as a clam.
She's
now.
a new puppy. She's like a new, she's 13 years old. She's like a new dog.
You were so worried for your little doggy.
And a lot of people, she's been through everything with me, and she's a wonderful little dog now, but she's so funny. She's back to her.
Tim called me 2 days after the surgery, and I was worried. I was really worried because when you called and said 26 teeth or 27.
She's a pug and a beagle mix.
So Tim calls me and he says, I said, how's Trixie? And he goes, oh my God, she's running, she's like her old self.
Yeah. She's running around, barking at the mailman, fighting with everybody, having a good time, being playful.
Now, Tim had a really
Did you want to do the thing?
There's 4 words.
All right.
Tim had a really quick shop talk that he found, and it was 4 words that you should never use in an interview. I happen to have issue with some of this.
Yeah. So this came from The Ladders, and it was an article written by Madeline Mann. And do you want to do the first word? So she said these 4 words you shouldn't say in an interview.
Do you want to do the first word? Wouldn't you associate that with me, the first word?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first word you should never use when you're in an interview situation is to say something like, I'm a perfectionist. Because apparently that means you're also a procrastinator.
Right.
Because nothing's ever perfect, you know, and what's the phrase we use? Done is good.
Done is good. Well, it says you put off work and you're sensitive to critique, which is totally you. And they said instead of...
Totally you.
It is. You don't like critique.
Happy belated birthday. I smush the lemon
They said
squares.
instead of saying you're a perfectionist, you should say something like you're detail-oriented.
Detail-oriented, yeah.
The second one said if somebody says you're a multitasker, so I can multitask. And they said that really just means you're unfocused.
I completely agree with that.
And you had talked one time, you had an employee that worked for you, and you said that she was on her phone...
AI, instant messenger.
Doing instant messaging, typing something, and you were trying to talk to her, and she said she could do it all.
She proved that she did.
But they said here that you really can't. They said your body, they said rather than saying you can multitask, you're really just switching quickly between things. And they said that you really can't write an email and listen to something or listening to a meeting at the same time.
Yeah.
They said you really need to compartmentalize that stuff. So they said that you should say instead that you're organized and you could work under competing deadlines.
Perfect. Now
I'm organized and I could compete under
multiple deadlines.
Yeah, whatever. Let me write that down.
The other one is another word another 2 words not to use is to say to the interviewer, I'm a people person. And there, Tim puts up a picture of Joan Crawford in the movie Straight Jacket.
She's a people person.
She's wearing charm bracelets that actually had microphones on them, and they rattle through the scene, and she lights a match off a spinning LP. Whoosh!
Tapes, that font's not very good.
But but people person means, according to this author, I don't know what the job entails.
Yeah, and they said that people person really has no meaning.
Yeah.
So they said instead you should say you're collaborative, customer focused,
there you go.
Client facing.
And this last one, I just kind of shook my head.
What was the last one?
Intelligent.
So that means what?
Well, you know, I don't have to try.
Right. So if you say, "Oh, I
don't have to try."
What if we heard I'm a really smart person? I'm intelligent. I went to
off the scale.
I went to a really good school. I'm very smart. I'm very intelligent. They say that really just means you don't have to try, as you said. But they said that people that say that usually avoid difficult tasks because they're so used to getting the easy tasks done. Mm-hmm. And anytime they come up against something that's difficult, they usually fail, and then they have a poor reaction to the failure. So they said instead you should say you're analytical, a big picture thinking, and a fast learner, instead of saying you're intelligent.
Okay, well that was the one on the list that I did circle and say,
I don't think any of these... You and I laugh about all these business books and all these business articles and a lot of things because it's the same.
And I laugh
a lot
about
the same
this
stuff regurgitated over and over again. And I'm not sure. I don't think I've ever been. And I've interviewed thousands of people. I was a recruiter, and then I also interviewed people in the corporate world. No one ever said to me, "I'm intelligent."
No.
Have you ever? Has anybody ever said to you when you interviewed that they were intelligent? Because I wondered about that one too, of saying, I don't know.
I interviewed someone once to be an associate designer at the agency, and she said something smart, and she said, I really love being a lifelong learner.
Which
and
is
so,
different.
and she said, so if the software changes, I'm eager to figure out what the change was. If I don't understand a process, I'll hopefully ask the right questions. And as she's saying this, I'm like, this is exactly what you want. She's basically saying, I don't know everything, but if I don't know, I'm going to raise my hand, and that's what you want, right?
Which is the joy of a liberal arts education. You learn how to learn.
The joy of a liberal arts education.
But I wondered about that because if someone says, "Oh, I'm a people person," or I've never had anybody really use those, but I could see where they're going, and I've never. Hey, when the best people I've always hired were the people that I could have a great conversation with, and I felt I had a connection to, and would fit well within the culture. You can teach to task.
What's your phrase?
Go ahead.
Who would you have a beer with?
Right. Yeah. Or who would you like to have lunch with or hang out after work with? And you can teach all the other stuff because every organization, and I don't care if you're working at Walmart again, I don't care if you're working there or a small mom and pop or a big corporation, every place has its own culture and a way you're going to fit in. And I think a lot of times it's finding that person that is going to fit in within your group, and then you can teach the other stuff. Here's how we do this. Here's how I'd like you to do this. And you can teach to task, but I hate when people do these scoring things, and I know a lot of companies do it, and I do miserable in those sort of interviews because I hate it, and I know what they're doing, and I think it's all bullshit.
But you were just talking about like a Walmart job. We used to work retail when we were younger.
Walden Books.
I was at Marshall's, brand names for less.
At least your company's still
open. Can I tell
open.
you something? I've learned more on certain jobs than I have owning my own business. And there was I told someone a story the other day that reminded me of something. We were talking about creativity, and I did you remember this because you sang a song about it. Winston tastes bad like the water I just had. So my former copywriting partner, Greg, and I did a consulting stint in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We were actually brought down to an agency to save the Winston cigarette account. And so I was the creative guy, Greg's the copy guy.
You were there for a couple of weeks.
We were there for 2 solid weeks in Winston-Salem.
Did you smoke while you were there?
Greg did. I had quit earlier, and so they brought.
Did you feel like you could smoke? Everybody smoke inside?
They rolled a cart around at 3 o'clock. The cigarette cart came around, and they had cartons. And Winston was like, "You need to have smoking in your office. You need to offer your employees these cigarettes."
Really?
The place stank of cigarette smoke. Greg was in heaven. I had just quit, and Greg's like, "I'm free cigarettes." So we go into the creative director's office one day, and we presented our first week of work, and he looks. He goes, okay. He goes, you guys are at cliche. I'm going to push into self-loathing. Then we'll see what happens. And I'm like, what? His name was Mike. And I said, Mike, what are you talking about? He goes, the 3 stages of creativity: cliche, self-loathing, eureka. And I said, he goes, cliche is the first idea that comes to your head. You think, hey, that's a great idea. You explore it a bit, but ultimately it's a cliche. He goes, that's where you guys are at right now. He goes, so I'm giving you the critique. And he goes, and I can tell that you guys are not happy with what I'm saying. He goes, that's okay. It's a critique. He goes, don't take it personally, but we need to be somewhere else. He goes, so you're going to go back to your little cubicle. And he goes, Greg, you may smoke a cigarette. And he goes,
was he an older guy?
No, he was, well, about 10 years older than me at the time. Yeah, so he was older. And then he said, then you're going to sit in your stew. You're going to stew, and you're going to think about what I told you, and how dare he not like these ideas. He goes, and then you're going to have the eureka moment where one of the ideas is going to get turned slightly, and you'll have the solution. 3 days later, we presented new creative, and he goes, eureka. He goes, we're showing the client these 3 ideas right here, because we presented 5. And I never forgot. Look, I'm repeating the story. Cliche, self-loathing, eureka. 3 stages of creativity. But you could probably have taught that at Marshall's or,
Yeah. But it's those sort of things that I think you can.
How does that get into a business book?
Well, and that was where I was going. You and I both worked with a lot of people that are more degrees than a thermometer. Yep. I used to say, and Subaru was famous for that. And very high-powered MBAs would come in there thinking they're going to save the world. And
exactly,
they all had their business books out, the business books on the desk, And at the end of the day, with the real world stuff, I'd say, okay. Here's your challenge. Let's try to figure it out. And by the way, you're not going to find it in your little book because we need to figure out how we're going to sell this product at a certain price point to this audience. And so we need to figure that out. And it involves the retailers. It involves budgeting.
And I just talked about common sense.
Right. So so you're right. You do learn. You learn those sort of things on the job.
Real world.
But you have to be open to it. And a lot of people aren't sometimes.
I'm intelligent.
I'm a really smart person.
I'm a multitask.
I went to the Wharton School.
I'm a people person.
Whose donations are down, by the way.
Ooh. Well, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, right? Hey, that's it for us. Happy belated birthday to Tim. You have cupcakes. You have the city's best lemon bars.
I'm going to...
I was going to bring Prosecco, but I believe the medication...
Oh, no, I can't. I can barely walk. I hope I make the train.
You got your cane. Thank you to Mondo for joining us. Remember, Dining Out for Life is April 26th. Check diningoutforlife.com to see what restaurants in your city are participating, but it's 70 cities or something like that?
70 cities.
Thanks, Deep Discount. We went over a couple movies on the 10 and under sale. I think it was Truth or Dare, Ordinary People, His Girl Friday, and the release of the week is The Showman movie, The Greatest Showman. And a big, big thank you to Volkswagen Group of America. They've been with us for over 8 years now, and we're getting ready to do some cool road trips. There's some new cars coming out that Tim and I are like, can we please test drive these? Like, we get to test drive a lot of cool stuff.
We're going to be full of Volkswagen,
full of cars
for the summer.
So thanks, everybody. And as Tim says, or used to say it before I kind of screwed him up, don't text and drive, arrive alive. See you next week.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Formerly on Sirius XM Satellite Radio and now accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.